Starting at the top of your mat, take a nice deep breath. Inhale through the nose, reach the fingertips nice and long. Exhale, rolling down through the spine. Then inhaling once again, lengthen through the spine. Exhale down, walking the hands out and along the mat, getting the wrists underneath the shoulders and coming to a nice plank position. Exhale, press back into a downward dog with bent knees. Inhale, lengthen out through the spine and continue to do this. Now walking the hands back towards the feet, bending the knees, rolling up and repeating this once more. Taking that inhale breath, reach through the fingers. Exhale, rolling down through the spine, walking out to that high plank position. Taking that press back, lifting the hips high, bending into the knees and getting that nice stretch through the back. And then inhaling, finding that nice strong lengthened plank position. Really grow out through the crown of your head. Just make sure that the elbows are still soft and we're getting those wrists underneath the shoulders. Coming down now into a half plank position for our push-ups. We lower the whole shape down towards the mat and press the floor away, keeping those elbows tucked in towards the ribs. Really lift the belly button towards the ceiling, shoulders down and back. Slight tuck of the chin and just avoid taking the head towards the mat first. Think chest down, then press the mat away. Final 2 to go. Last one, and then press it all the way back. Flipping the palms to the ceiling and having a nice stretch through the shoulders. We're going to start to take a press and push back position, sending the body down to the mat and pressing back to a child's pose, continuing with this action. Keeping the elbows tucked in, skimming the ribs as we come down into that pressed position. Keeping the body in a nice long line and pressing that mat away. Final 2. Exhale, press up and away. Last one. And then just coming to the forearms for a little stretch before pressing back into a child's pose position, just resting here, catching the breath. We're going to do a cat-cow variation now. So when we're ready, we're going to float up to a 4-point kneel. You're going to take an inhale breath and lengthen through the crown of the head and tailbone. On the exhale breath, you're going to curl and round through the spine and sit the bottom back towards the heels, reaching the fingertips forward. Inhale forward, lengthen. Exhale, curl and round and sit back. Keep flowing with this breath and maximizing that nice stretch through each position. And we're going to set up after this next one back in that nice 4-point kneel position for our variation on horse kick. We're extending the right leg out nice and long behind us, reaching through the toe, floating that leg and drawing the knee into the chest, curling, scooping through the abs before extending nice and long. Being careful not to overextend and arch through the back, keep the tummy nice and tight. We're going to hold the leg out on the next one. And the supporting leg, we're going to tuck the toes and float that knee, pressing the mat away, repeating the movement of the tuck and scoop before extending. If this is too much, you can come back to option 1. Otherwise, continue with the float and tuck of the leg. Just continuing with the same now without the float. Scooping the abdominals, really curling through that movement before extending it out nice and long. Tucking the toe now and pressing all the way up to a one-legged down dog. Nice big press back through the spine, And then we're going to come forward into that nice high plank, driving the knee in between the hands. Little pulses up, really squeezing into that tummy. And pressing all the way back out. Come all the way through now, stepping the foot between the hands rather, dropping the knee and coming into a nice hip flexor stretch. Taking a nice inhale, lifting the arms up towards the ceiling, sinking the shoulders down and back, reach through the fingers, really sitting into that nice stretch. Then coming around, finding your child's pose, relaxing here for a moment, taking a nice deep breath. And then coming up once again, finding that kneel position, big scoop and sink into that hip flexor stretch. We're going to find some length in those hamstrings now. So rocking back onto that heel, flexing that toe to ceiling, and then foot flat on the floor, find that nice stretch through the hip flexor once more. Switching between these two positions, really flexing the toe up towards the nose, folding from the crease of the hip, and lengthening out through the front of that hip flexor. Tuck the toes back, press into the downward facing dog and drop the heels into that mat for that final extension. And then we get to repeat it all on the second side. Taking the left leg now back behind us, we find that float, scoop and tuck of the lower abdominals before we find that extension. Keep squaring the hips and find a nice scoop in those abdominals, not overextending in that back and crunching into the lower spine. Getting ready to tuck that toe and float that underneath leg, scoop those abdominals and extend. Remember, you always have the option to keep that knee on the floor. Finishing these last three with the knee on the mat before we tuck the toe and extend it back into that one-legged downward dog. Finding that nice press back and extension, really reach that leg up towards the ceiling, drop the heel, and then floating forward into that high plank, drive the knee between the hands and find those pulses. Suck that belly button to the ceiling and scoop those abs, really pressing right up to the front of the mat before reaching all the way back. Then stepping the foot between the hands and coming into that nice release of the hip flexor stretch. Deep breath in, reaching those fingertips up towards the ceiling, shoulders down, sinking deeper into that stretch. And then pressing all the way back to the downward facing dog, dropping the heels, press the chest to thighs, find that extension, and coming back into that kneeled position to find that hip flexor stretch once more. And then we will be taking that length through the back of the leg into the hamstring with flexing the toe to ceiling and coming forward, each time sinking deeper into each stretch, folding from the crease of the hip, chest to thigh. Then replacing the leg, tucking the toes and sending the tailbone high for your downward facing dog. Getting that nice stretch through the spine and really melting the heels down into the mat. And walking the hands back towards the feet, grabbing hold of the elbows and just hanging here nice and heavy, feeling that stretch through the backs of the legs and releasing any tension from the upper body.